All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Port Royal's March 13th council meeting. We got a packed house. It's always great to see some of our first responders here, so we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. Thank you all for being here. Start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Guerrero, if you could lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you for this opportunity as we assemble before your presence. We thank you for this great country. We thank you for our leaders. And we thank you for the business that will be conducted on tonight, that it will be done in the best interest of those whom we serve. We thank you for our military, our first responders across the country and here present tonight. These blessings we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right. Okay. Up next, we've got approval of some minutes. We've got the minutes from council workshop of February 8th, minutes from council meeting of February 14th. Valentine's Day was beautiful if you were here.
Yes, it was.
Can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes from the council meeting of the workshop of February 8th, 2024, and the minutes from the council meeting of February 14th, 2024, and it was an awesome night.
Yeah. Any changes or corrections, anyone?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Minutes are approved. Okay. Up next, we've got a presentation, Police Department and Fire Department recognition. Let you guys go. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us.
Sir.
Thank you for everyone who showed up tonight. Packed house, and thank you all for those that's joining us online tonight. We have, as you know, Police and Fire Department runs thousands of calls a year here in Port Royal and all across our community. But sometimes some of those calls are extra special. So we have one of those extra special incidences we want to share with you tonight. So we have a few guest speakers, a few presentations to make to some of our police and firefighters and others that were involved in the incident. We're going to start it off by Chief Fazan giving you a brief overview of what happened during that incident. So, Chief Fazan.
Good evening, everybody. On the early morning of November 1st, 2023, at approximately 1:15 a.m., officers from the Town of Port Royal Police Department and firefighters from the City of Beaufort Town of Port Royal Fire Department responded to a gunshot victim at Aberley Point Apartments in Port Royal off Highway 170. The patient, Jaden Pierman, was shot multiple times while trying to keep his vehicle from being stolen by at least 3 armed suspects. Those suspects didn't know that Jaden's a United States Marine. Jaden was a Marine and was sleeping at the time the suspect tried to steal his vehicle. Jaden's wife was up with their newborn, and she heard his truck start up and immediately woke Jaden up. Jaden ran downstairs and prevented the suspects from stealing his truck, but was shot multiple times while doing so. Corporal Kirby was on duty. Off-duty Beaufort Port Royal Fire Department Lieutenant Paramedic Damanowski, who lives in the complex, was alerted through our alerting software to his phone. It gives us every call that we respond to. And off-duty BMH nurse Julia Dale heard the gunshots and went down to help. Corporal Kirby, Lieutenant Damanowski, and Julia Dale did a rapid exam of Jaden and identified several gunshot wounds and a life-threatening sucking chest wound. Immediately, working as a team, they applied a chest seal to the gunshot wound, which prevented asphyxia and assisted Jaden with his ability to breathe. Engine 4, Medic 3, Battalion 1 arrived on scene with Lieutenant Reinhardt, Engineer Martin Vidal, Firefighter Zachary Sparks, Firefighter Paramedic Aaron McIntyre, and Battalion Chief Kyle Peoples. At this time, due to our advanced life support license, our crews, and our proactive protocols, these crews were able to start advanced life support interventions. Lieutenant Damanowski requested a needle to perform a needle decompression through Jaden's chest wall to help him with his breathing. Prior to performing the needle decompression, Jaden was complaining of not being able to breathe, and his conditions were rapidly decreasing. After needle decompression was performed, both Lieutenant Damanowski and Julia Dale were able to start IVs in both arms to get fluid running to help with the amount of blood loss Jaden was experiencing. While en route to the hospital, a second needle decompression was performed by firefighter paramedic Aaron McIntyre. The needle decompression is important for us because this is the first time a needle decompression is ever done in our department, and it helped save Jaden's life. Jaden was transported to Beaufort Memorial Hospital and later transported to MUSC, where he spent 2 weeks recovering, but was able to come home before Thanksgiving to be with his beautiful family.
Thank you, Chief Azan. Now we have Jaden join us. The patient from that night. Nice to see you. Jaden has a few words to share from his perspective of what happened that night. Go ahead, buddy.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, my name is Lance Corporal Pierman. I'm stationed here at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort, and I've been here with my family a little over a year and a half, this being my first duty station. What happened that night, while very unfortunate, has humbled me and gave me a wonderful new perspective on life. And I have Port Royal and Beaufort's finest to thank for that. They rushed to me in my hour of need and did what was necessary and took the proper steps to obviously save my life. And I owe them so many things for that. And I cannot thank them enough. And not only them, but their support system, this community, the people that are around them and around me that all came together to do what was necessary for me to continue my mission and to continue to serve this country, which is something that I absolutely love doing. And had it not been for those men and women, I would not be here today. And the best way that I can think of to thank all of you is to just continue to be the best person I can be, and to keep being a better father and husband and better Marine. And I would not have that opportunity if it were not for these brave men and women that were there that night. So I would just like to extend my thanks and gratitude to all of you. And I think we're ready to give out some awards, hopefully. So we'll do that.
Next, real quick, Dr. Luke Baxley is going to come up and explain what was actually happening to Jaden from a medical perspective and how we treated that when our first responders arrived on scene. So Dr. Baxley's been with us since 2017 as our medical director. It wouldn't be possible for us to do what we did without his guidance, his leadership, him overseeing our procedures that we are able now to perform at an ALS level. So Dr. Baxley is going to give his perspective on what was happening that night. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm going to kind of turn around, and I don't want you to think I'm turning my back on you, but
You
I
might-
wanted... Just hold on, get a microphone. All right. So I'm Dr. Baxley. Nice to meet you guys. I wanted to come up and give a little insight into what happened that night from a medical standpoint, because I think it adds a lot of weight to just the whole crazy, awesome story. So really want to talk about what it takes to save a life, for anyone to save a life. Growing up, I thought, I'm sure you guys are like me, I thought ER doctors and nurses and paramedics just ran around like saving people's lives, like, you're good, you're good, you're good. But the truth of the matter is that opportunity is few and far between. We render care, we treat disease, we offer comfort and put on Band-Aids and give reassurance, but the opportunity to actually save someone's life doesn't come around that often. And in order to do it, you got to recognize that there's an opportunity, but you also have to have the training, the education, the expertise, and the intestinal fortitude to do what needs to be done against the clock. And so I wanted to talk about, I don't know if any of you guys are queasy, but I want to talk about what happened. You mind if I use you as an obvious example? So and what it means and what happens physiologically when someone gets shot in the chest. So the bullet entered, I believe it's your left anterior chest wall here, went through the skin, through the subcutaneous tissues, the ribs, and into the lung tissue where it did the majority of the damage. And what happens is, if you think about a lung, it's kind of like a sponge, like one of those old big sponges we used to wash dishes with, filled with tons of little air sacs. When that tissue is injured, those air sacs open up and release air into this potential space in the chest wall. And initially, I don't know if you can agree with me, but the brain has this crazy ability to block pain. And so it doesn't hurt, but with each breath, more air leaks out, and that air starts to push on things inside the chest. It starts to push on the heart, it starts to push on the good lung, the functioning lung, and as he takes a breath in, more air is released. Breath in, more air is released. The pressure starts to build up within his chest wall. The brain can block pain, but what it cannot block is the sensation that you can't breathe. Is that you? Yeah. And so that's when the time clock starts. As that air starts leaking out, panic ensues, starts to breathe deeper, faster breaths, more air, faster breaths, more air, more pressure. Things are starting to get pushed over. And that is fixed only by creating an outlet for that air to escape. And the way they do that is take a needle. It's called a needle decompression. You take a needle, kind of like they put in your arm, but you stick it through the chest wall into that potential space and allow that air to escape. That reduces the pressure, everything comes back to normal, and I don't know if you remember the feeling, the sensation of being able to breathe again. And that is awesome. And so what it really takes to save a life is the knowledge, the education, the skill, and recognizing the opportunity to do what needs to be done against the clock. But more so, even in this scenario, the most amazing thing is that, when you hear gunshots outside your door, I don't know about you, but everyone I know would lock the door, step away, call the police. But that's not what Matt and Julia did. They unlocked the door, opened it wide, ran into the night in the wee hours of the morning, looking for someone they didn't know to render care, got to him in time, realized what was going on, had the intestinal fortitude to do what they knew needed to be done, which is needle decompress his chest, which worked. Ambulance came, loaded him up, took him to the hospital. He arrived at Buford Memorial in stable condition. And that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you, Dr. Baxley. Jaden, if you'll join me, we're going to pass out some awards. Lieutenant Matt Dominowski and ER Nurse Julia Dale. And Colonel, you want to introduce your police officers that you want to bring up?
Corporal Carrion Kirby and PFC Russell Simmons.
Come on up and join us up front there. As you heard tonight, y'all did what you were trained to do, but you did it, some of you, in an element that you're not used to. Julia, you're not used to performing some procedures on the street in the middle of the night. And Matt, I'm sure you're not used to running out your apartment room. Well, maybe you are. I don't know. You like to do stuff like that. And our police officers are always on the job there first, willing to help in any way. So Jaden's going to hand out some life-saving awards to the four of you. So, Jaden. And now I'm going to call up the rest of the responders that joined them that night, that responded to the call. First, our Battalion Chief, Kyle Peoples, if you'll join me up front. Lieutenant Ricky Reinhardt. Firefighter Paramedic Aaron McIntyre. Firefighter Martin Vidal. Firefighter Zachary Sparks. Zachary is part-time firefighter with us, and he's full-time with Ladies Island Fire District. At this time, Jaden's going to hand you a letter of accommodation for your services for that incident that night.
going to say thank you.
Yeah. I got the CEO of the air station going to speak too.
Okay.
And we also have the Marine Corps Air Station CEO joining us tonight that would like to say a few words also. Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Let's see if I can put this thing back in here if I can. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and the Town Council for allowing me to have a few moments. When I heard about this, I knew we had to do something as well from our side. And hearing Jaden's story about what happened that morning in November is really moving to me. The other thing that was moving to me is I had a conversation with his commanding officer today, who told me that he thought one of the reasons why Jaden has recovered so quickly is based on the positive attitude that he has and how infectious he is to the other Marines and sailors that work with him in the unit that he's in. And I was really moved by such positive comments from a commander to a very specific Marine. But being here tonight doesn't surprise me at all. So just a couple of quick comments. We are often called, Marine Corps is often called America's 911 force. We're the folks you call when you need us to go and take care of something. And who do we call? Who does America's 911 force call when we have an issue? It's the folks that are standing right here. So especially Corporal Kirby, Lieutenant Demonowski, and Nurse Dale for what you did immediately, and then everyone else for the help. These, the medics, the firefighters, the policemen, and this nurse truly saved this Marine's life. And we can't thank you enough. I also would like to thank the town of Port Royal for the funding, the training, the procedures, and the proficiency that allows these folks to do what they are able to do at that moment when seconds needed to be turned into a lifetime. We talk about a lot what the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor means to us. And to us, it's an unbreakable bond. You know, I know that I'm willing to give my life precisely because there's a Marine who's standing next to me willing to give his or her life for me. That is a bond that will never be broken. And that spirit is something we call Semper Fidelis. And each of you embodies that spirit entirely. And so I'm super proud to add to this these awards when you, again, turn those key seconds into what remains of a life. And the last thing I'll say, you gave this Marine's mother, who's here tonight, a son. You gave his wife a husband. You gave his son a father. And you gave me a Marine back who will answer our nation's call at some point in the future. So from me to you, as the commander from the base, I want to say thank you very much. And Jade, come on over, help me. Corporal Kirby. There's a certificate of commendation from me on behalf of myself and the Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort to you. Thank you for what you did. Nurse Dale. Also a certificate of commendation for being there to save a life. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lieutenant Dominowski. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And then moving on to, looks like Patrolman First Class Simmons. Thanks again. Yeah, absolutely. Firefighter Zachary Sparks. Thank you. Fighter and emergency medical technician Martin Bastos. Thank you. Just a few more. Battalion Chief Peoples. Firefighter Paramedic McIntyre. Thank you. Thank you. Lieutenant Reinhardt. And thanks to you, Jaden.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
we can get a picture real quick, if y'all, yes.
Okay, here we go in 1, 2, 3, one more. Okay, and whatever she needs, she has a bigger lens.
I was going to say, I guess we got work to do. Thank you all very much. Absolutely.
guys. One more time, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Amazing.
Awesome crew.
kind of puts things into perspective for you. So I'm glad they were able to come here tonight and share that story. So we'll give them a second to
And the support.
kind of come out. Absolutely. And thank you all for being here too, to show your support. Got the best first responders
In the country.
in the country.
In the country.
Country. And as a former paramedic, I think it is wonderful. And they all did the job that we all learned to do. And if it wasn't for them, that soldier would not be here tonight. So, thank you.
That was good.
Cleared the house.
Yeah, no, it's, oh yeah, I guess it's like kind of our usual crowd.
Yeah.
Same old. Yeah, it's good.
Hard act to follow.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
That was a
sit here and just suck
interesting
that in.
story.
I know.
That was a crazy story.
That was. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, having him break down the medical side of it too. Well, that was,
Yeah,
Let me tell
Yeah.
you, Dr. Baxley is number one in my book, always
Yeah.
has been.
yeah. That was
He's probably-
amazing, the way he described it.
He's probably one of the best doctors in the ER that I've ever seen.
okay, so now moving on, keeping it moving into the rest of our business. But that was very.
They're moving.
That was moving and humbling. That was really special. So, up next we have a proclamation. 2024 Disabilities Awareness Month is upon us, and so we have a proclamation from that. We have Galen Stirrup Como. Hey, how are you doing? If you'd like to come forward. I just know him as Galen. How'd the event at town go?
Actually, that went really, really well. We gave out about a 62 or 63 naloxone over here in town. So I also work for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Department. There was a recent event there, so I wear a lot of hats. Sorry.
Yes. Last time when I ran into Galen, he was at the it was Overdose Awareness Month. Or we were doing
Yes.
a walk, and so they had a Narcan event here where they gave out free Narcan, something like that. So
Yeah, you guys set a record for the second most naloxone given out in at one event here in Beaufort County. So congratulations.
Well, thank you for all your work on these important issues. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll read this proclamation. And a proclamation by the Town of Port Royal 2024 Disabilities Awareness Month. Whereas more than 500,000 South Carolina residents and families are impacted by severe lifelong disabilities, including autism, head injuries, spinal cord injuries, intellectual disabilities, and related disabilities without regard to race, culture, geography, age, sex, or economic class. And whereas people with lifelong disabilities are productive citizens, neighbors, and family members deserving of respect and opportunities for economic self-sufficiency, independence, and personal growth. And whereas the South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, the Town of Port Royal, the County Disabilities and Special Needs Board work with families to provide services that promote independence and inclusion, And whereas we owe a special debt of gratitude to the caregivers who selflessly provide physical, emotional, and spiritual support to our residents with disabilities and special needs. And whereas the 2024 Observance of Disability Awareness Month celebrates the successful partnership between people with and without disabilities, as well as the increasing involvement of people with disabilities in education, employment, and community activities. Now, therefore, Kevin Phillips, Mayor of the Town of Port Royal, South Carolina, do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Disabilities Awareness Month in the Town of Port Royal, and encourage our citizens to work together to promote increased opportunities for people with disabilities, to recognize the many contributions made by people with disabilities to our community, and to honor the dedication of the caregivers who bring support and hope to their fellow citizens. Dated the 13th day of March, 2024. So, anything you wanted to add?
I will.
Yeah. Go ahead. We'll take a picture of this. But anything you want to
Cool,
add? Jeff?
absolutely. Good evening, council members, and good evening, audience. My name is Galen Stark-Camo. I'm a member of the Beaufort County Disabilities and Special Needs County Disabilities and Special Needs Advisory Board. I serve as their public relations chair as well. That's a new role. It's trying to learn what that one is all about. But anyway, we would like to thank you for this proclamation and recognition of Disabilities Awareness Month. The staff at Disabilities and Special Needs work incredibly hard on behalf of hundreds of adults and children with developmental disabilities, such as Down syndrome and autism, in our community. And it's a very challenging and extremely important job. The staff, the work they do is extremely important, as well as it also is rewarding as well as challenging. The staff prepare the consumers for jobs in the community, as well as to undertake a lot of the skills and abilities and daily functions that we all do and take for granted, that you may not even think about as something that is hard to do, or a baseline of, I can get up and organize myself and get myself dressed and ready to go for the day. And that sometimes those are struggles for people, and thusly individual. It's all good. And our staff are able to help people to try and be able to live with as much independence and dignity as possible. So Bill Love and his team are really good at that, as well as trying to expand their amount of services and expand the campus that they have. They recently added a new walking path and to add some more physical activities, as well as a lot more assistive technologies in their independent living homes. So that way, if something is going on, they're able to assist. And the consumers are able to get some assistance without necessarily having a staff around as well. So that way they can be a little more independent. The proclamation that you guys are doing today in support of these individuals and our staff means so much in increasing positive public awareness of individuals with disabilities, and I thank you all very much.
Thank you. Hold on, we'll take a picture.
Yes, sir.
Someone else come down there?
Sure.
Sure, why not?
Here we go. And 1, 2, 3. One more. Okay. Got it.
Great work for you guys in the community. Really appreciate it.
All right. Moving along, up next we've got council briefing. We had that last week at the workshop. Anything to add, or?
Yeah, just a couple of updates. First, Brooke and I did have a discussion with the engineer on the potential reconstruction of the shrimp dock. We discussed some length issues, as well as we'd interface the forklifts where the fall area would be, kind of keeping that spatial separation between the recreational users and the commercial users. So he's going to fine tune that and bring that back to y'all for kind of a final look. Those are some questions we want answered. Then this past week, obviously, we made a presentation to Beaufort Jasper on the potential development plans, or what was on the board for development in the town of Port Royal, as well as presented them with a couple of our capital projects that we'd like to see happen over the next few years. One, obviously, is the sewering of Rebo Road. Michael put together a cost estimate and a scope for that, and that's about a $7 million project by his estimates. So we'll see where that fits into the long-range planning, as well as any other grant opportunities that we do have. And secondly, we obviously discussed the filling of the holes, the sewer that doesn't exist in some areas of the town, 15th Street, Columbia Avenue, as well as some portions of Old Shell Road. And then finally, obviously, there's been a lot of resurfacing going on. That's gone relatively smoothly, pun intended. We have had a couple of questions on how we are going to interface the driveways with the road. We're working on those things. Some questions about cleanup and some of the extra asphalt. All that will be taken care of by Blight. We've been getting the phone calls and forwarding to Blight to get those taken care of. But they're moving pretty quickly, and overall pretty pleased with the work once it gets started. So, any questions y'all have?
No, I'll comment on that. I've been pleasantly surprised. No, I should say, I've been very happy with the progress I've seen on the roads. I've ridden them. I've interacted with some of their folks. It's been a good experience. They're doing a good job. I appreciate that.
Any update, any word from our partners at Safe Harbor?
We have reached out to them, I don't know how many times since we last met. Even prior to the workshop last week, we did obviously send something, what we would like to see in return, and have 2 p.m. today.
Well, my point of view, I think their non-answer is an answer. So, any other questions from staff or council?
Not I, said the flag.
All right. Up next, public comment for agenda items, but we have no agenda items, so just keep moving. I do have another. We'll get some public comments here at the end. Up next is a resolution. Do I need to read this, I think?
No, you don't need to read that. Basically, what it does is formalizes our ability to execute documents with the YMCA. Many of you probably know the town owned a portion of what was the Cypress Wetlands adjacent to the YMCA. And what we had over the wetlands was an easement that allowed us to do everything that we've been doing, and that's been in place for more than 2 decades. The YMCA reached out to us and expressed an interest in conveying the remainder of that property, so it would be in our name only. Not that they get tax bills for it, but they do generate some paperwork from the county, and that we just thought would be in the best interest. So our attorney worked with their attorney, and for the grand sum of $5,000, we were able to obtain the balance of the Cypress Wetlands, and this resolution will formalize our commitment to pursue that.
By downtown Port Royal property for $5,000.
I think anybody in this room would take the deal.
Let's put some affordable housing.
It comes with alligators.
It does come with a lot of alligators. So. But no, that was something. It just came up. It was one of those things I did not know that. Being on the board of the Y, and it came up through conversations that the town. You think of the Cypress Wetlands, you think of the town of Port Royal, but it's actually owned majority by the YMCA. They wanted to kind of get rid of that, so they for $5,000. We thought that was a pretty good deal for the town, just to kind of take over the rest of it and just kind of have ownership of the whole Cypress Wetlands. And so that's what this resolution is. I'll save you all of the details of it. But so, do we need a
motion to approve?
Do I need a motion to approve the resolution 5-2024?
So move.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. We got the wetlands now. Okay. Up next is council information, tree ordinance discussion.
We're not expecting any formal action here this evening, but obviously based upon the discussions we had at the retreat and conversations leading up to the retreat, obviously there was, the council was going to revisit the tree ordinance and potentially any modifications or amendments to that ordinance to address concerns we'd heard since it was passed. Obviously, the couple of things that we have heard are relative to species, obviously lots of questions of water oaks and laurel oaks. And one of the second things that we heard is how this would impact the plats of record, plats and lots that existed prior to passage of the tree ordinance. And the reason why it's come up is because many of those layouts were done contemplating the previous tree ordinance and what its impact would have on potential development.
When you say layouts, you're meaning specifically the
Like-
HOA, the HOA neighborhoods.
Or entire neighborhoods that were, they came to us with a site plan that laid out the lots. At that time, they anticipated the trees that were located on those lots. They made accommodations or positioned lots depending upon whatever species they had at the time. I can guarantee you that most of the lots were laid out did not anticipate us protecting water and laurel oaks. But obviously, in some cases, we have live oaks that are situated on lots that previously probably would have been removed. But because of the new ordinance, obviously, they still can remove those if they go in front of the design review board. However, the mitigation costs associated with the removal is pretty significant. And in some cases, maybe as much as the lot itself. And so these are all topics that I think we wanted, or everybody wanted to discuss to see if there was any potential for council to revisit any sections of that ordinance to amend.
Yeah, I'm all for opening it back up and having
Me too.
discussions about it.
It was discussed, we did not rush into this decision when we modified the tree ordinance, and there was, the minutes or records would also reflect we did have this discussion that in the future that we were gonna allow this some time and see how it worked out, and we would make tweaks and adjustment as necessary once they came to our attention. So I think we're within the scope of what we stated that we would do.
Will any changes that are recommended, will they just, is that something, a council action, or does that have to go through the planning commission now because it's a change of an ordinance, or?
It's not in the zoning code.
It's not in the zoning code, okay. So-
And that was a discussion we had at the time where we wanted to place it. And
Okay.
obviously, outside of the zoning code seemed
So
appropriate.
it doesn't, it won't come, nothing we do wouldn't come before us with a recommendation or?
No.
You all have the ability to delegate the authority to the planning commission to make a recommendation prior to your hearing the changes.
Gotcha. Okay. So, well, how do you want to go about this?
Move forward.
How do you think it's best? You want us to just,
Well, I mean, if
you
there
want
are.
to set up a session to talk about it, or you want us just to start?
I think we
riffing
need
right
to,
now?
get some feedback from council to see how staff would craft any sort of potential changes to that ordinance. Or no changes. I mean, y'all could be satisfied with the way it's working. And
Well, you had
There
noted
should
the-
be some discussion in regards
looking
to
at
the resident that came in and so forth.
Yeah, I think that, after hearing them, and they owned that lot for a long time. And their idea was one day to retire and come here, just like a lot of other people. And I think that $72,000 probably outsees what the property was. But these were all platted a long time ago in that HOA. And it's kind of hard to expect people to pay that kind of money and keep them from building the house when the tree, and it's gonna have to be more of a case by case, because this one, the tree is in the middle of the lot, and it prohibits them from building their home due to that tree. I'm not saying do away with the tree ordinance, I'm not saying we drop a whole lot, but I do think that we have to consider that when we're looking at this ordinance. We're not trying to hurt people, we're trying to protect the trees, but when it prohibits somebody from building their home and their lot, then, unfortunately, we've got to look at that.
Well, and, I mean, just speaking of this issue, I mean, the tree ordinance one is still something I'm very proud of, and I think
Absolutely.
this sounds also that, I mean, for doing that. So it still has got to hold that spirit of protecting trees and
Absolutely.
protecting, especially we all talk about the live oaks. If there are dangerous trees on there, I think that should, something that would be opened up. If there's something that, because public safety is also important. People's lives, people's property are also important too. But it still, to me, should have some bite. It still needs to sting. It still needs to hurt. It still needs to encourage people to figure out other ways to build besides cutting down trees. one issue that I had, and I would want to know if we just went in and grandfathered everything that's already been platted, I'd want to know what all has been platted. Like how much of the town are we talking about that we basically are now just removing? Because if it's, 80% of the town, I wouldn't want to do it. But if it's just a neighborhood or two, then maybe. But so that's a question that how much of the town is already pre-platted if we're even thinking about going in and grandfathering those in. One issue I had with the most recent one was that it is in a gated HOA. It's in a private community that has a board that is voted on by their own people. They make rules in there. Sometimes, we don't like it when either, or just, another government agency comes and tells us, and, kind of that trickle down issue. So sometimes, like I said, they have their own HOA board. So I see that as a difference now, whether everybody agrees with that or not, or whether that's enough to change it. But they have their own boards that they vote on that give approval to the trees in those, like I said, privately gated communities. I don't even know how many people have been in Pinckney Retreat. I've been twice, and that's only because it was an invite. It's not like it's not open to the public. You can't just go back there. So I see that as a little different than the village, the downtown area, that's open to everyone. So those are just kind of some broad thoughts. But again, I think it still needs to hurt. It still needs to sting. It still needs to encourage.
We need to protect the trees.
It needs to encourage finding other ways to build around trees. But again, if there's issues with safety, that's something that I think, public safety is, that's number one priority for us. You don't want people getting hurt. So I don't know if that helps or if that guides it anyway.
I got a couple of comments, if you allow me. I'm definitely looking at some of the species. I think it's important that you noted the water oaks, laurel oaks, those things, and maybe get into some other species. And I don't know how to figure out the plats and records, but that's something that we've definitely got to look at for consistency. Mm-hmm. Because if you buy something thinking that you're going to be able to do it, and then all of a sudden you can't, then I don't think that's I don't like that. Mm-hmm. We need to talk about that.
I think that's what leaves it open to the whole by exception, right? Like the team that showed up from Pinckney showed up with their HOA president. They showed us how, in every opportunity they had to switch their house and their layout, they were even willing to amend the way they allowed to build the garage in that neighborhood. They tried everything, and I think that's something that we discussed, right? Like that's really by exception at this point. They tried everything they could. Mm-hmm. There's no other way to do it on this plat anymore. Like, other than that, I don't get a garage or I don't get a house. And that's the thing. And also, speed being of the essence with consideration as we get builders that come in once in a while. We start having residents that lose their builder because they can't start on this project. We start to doing those things. Yeah, and it does. It starts to really rack up some costs. So that's all I would open for discussion to see how that and how speed becomes of the essence for us with consideration, right? With the design review board or whoever's doing it. But that truly is a by exception thing, right? I've never seen you guys interact like that before. It was my first time seeing it. Jerry asked me to come and sit in on that. I was like, wow, they tried everything. And, how do we do this? And so we do, and again, it's something to be extremely proud of. I'm not going to disagree with that. That's an awesome ordinance. It really takes what Port Royal's trying to do and puts it on a different level, from everybody else. I think we do exercise a little bit of grace there by being willing and open to continually communicate about that to make sure that our residents are getting the best use of their land tied into, private owner rights and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. And so again, I want personally Port Royal to be the greenest municipality in Beaufort County. So like I said, as long as the spirit of the ordinance is still there. If there's a few areas, like I said, around safety that we can talk about, then I'll be able to discuss that.
Well, I think you definitely need to look at that laurel oak, water oak, that whole thing there. I don't think that's very good. Those are those are trees that could potentially be dangerous, and maybe we dive down into some others. I don't know. That's definitely need to look at that. That's all I got.
Yeah.
but while maintaining the spirit of the the tree ordinance. I don't, you know.
Well, we took a lot of thought, and I mean, we did a lot of study on that, and it's important. And I'll be the first. We were the ones that said,
Do you have
put
other
the price up
examples in the
there
community?
because we wanted to protect the trees and the community, because that's what it's all about. But we certainly don't want to bring harm.
Say again?
Where we've had issues?
Yeah, do you have any other examples of any developers that have come before y'all?
No,
Any-
it kind of stopped it in its tracks. So,
Yeah. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to talk through how to work around landmark-sized trees with a developer who's working on a greenfield property than it is with a single-family lot owner who's trying to figure out how to configure their home on the lot. And that's where that disparity happens that we didn't really account for with the way that the ordinance was adopted initially.
I mean, let's just say, all right, before we pass this ordinance, if that lot had come in for development, what would have happened?
They would have, I think, largely accounted for, so there's 98 inches of live oak total that are approved to be removed with the fees. It would have been, I think 2/3 of that would have been accounted for with saving other live oaks on the property. I think there's 70 some inches that are being saved, so that would have negated any mitigation costs, and then the remainder would have been $100 an inch, so maybe they would have paid $3,000 to the tree fund rather than $72,000.
Plus plant, plus other mitigation, plus plant backs.
Plus, yeah, so under the old tree ordinance, we would have said, okay, you have your lot's this big, you're saving 2 or 3 overstory canopy trees. You don't need to plant any additional trees because you're meeting that canopy coverage requirement.
Can you walk me through, is there a difference with HOAs? Because I remember I saw where you talked about an HOA can submit a letter that.
We require a letter, if the HOA has an architectural review committee, we require a letter of approval in order to review and approve a building permit in that HOA. And like in the case of Pinckney Retreat, they specifically mention landscape plan is approved, which is, we know these trees are being removed and we know what's being planted here. Others might leave it up to the town because they want the town to enforce the tree ordinance the way that it is. But yeah.
In the scenario that we're talking about, was that letter submitted?
Yes.
There was one? And
Building
what did it say?
plans and landscape plans were approved by the HOA in that one case.
Gotcha. But some HOAs do leave it blank and say.
Not blank, they would, but the trees in particular, they've approved, and I don't want to, honestly, Pinckney Retreat is the one that I deal with the most, so I'm most familiar with their process, but like take Willow Point, for example, I think that they look at the trees, but there's a caveat that ultimately that approval is up to the town.
Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can craft some options for existing lots of record, and then really look at the species list. I mean, beyond the laurel and water oaks. I mean, because those are troublesome trees, and I know that was a discussion we even had during the ordinance, and we decided to include those. But when you're looking at, laurels and waters, I mean, their mitigation costs are basically the same.
And if we do, because before I make a decision on that pre-plotted lot size, can we know how many?
Yeah, I could put a map together.
What we're
with
talking
what that
about?
would
Are
look
we
like.
talking about, 3 or 4 places, or are we talking about
20.
hundreds of?
And I think we may know if they're platted and they're laid out, I mean, most of the time, they're going to include a tree topo in that lot, at least the original submittal. So we'll have an idea. And to be quite honest with you, a lot of them that have already recorded, I mean, if you talk about some of the neighborhoods, they may have addressed the tree issues already.
Yeah, and a majority of the HOAs or subdivisions that you're looking at are mostly built out. Like Pinckney Retreat, I think only has 5 lots or so left. That's kind of the situations that we want to make sure that those things are kept on track. HOAs count on the fees from each lot to take care of the needs that they have individually, so.
Yeah, that was something I learned from that whole process, that they said Brickney Retreat has 77 lots, and they count on 77 lots to break that kind of money to pay for everything. So not living in an HOA, didn't know that. So, yeah. So, okay, all right, so we'll get some recommendations from you and just take it from there. Like I said, there's no deadline on it, but, just something we just, like we said, we're going to talk about it, so we'll talk about it. Okay. Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. All right. Okay, up next, important dates.
Cover those. Thursday, March 14th, Vivo Living Ribbon Cutting at 2 p.m. Tuesday, March 19th, the Redevelopment Commission meeting from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. And then Monday, March 25th is the first Planning Commission meeting at 4:30 p.m. Anything else? You got any other dates?
I bet there's probably some St. Patty's Day events going on this weekend around town. Yeah. I know Showring's doing something, yeah. And that's, any other dates? Yeah. Any other dates?
Not sure.
Okay. Well, nothing coming up, but hope everyone does have a happy Easter. We won't see them until before our next meeting, so, but, all right, so those meetings are coming up. It's a beautiful time of the year. Hope everybody's having a good time outside. Public comment. Now we'll move into public comment, non-agenda items in no particular order. Jean and Don Newton. Come on down.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor, Donna's going to pass out a GIS rendering of the properties that we're going to be talking about to help you understand what I'll be talking about. Okay.
Thanks, sir.
My name is Jean Newton, and I am the granddaughter of Mary Snipe Daniels, who lived in this community for years. She procured her property at 21 Dawson Place in 1941. And what I'd like to talk about tonight is really to ask for your help in trying to get unimpeded access to our property, which refers to lots 21, 26, and 28 Dawson Place. This is something that we have not been able to accomplish, and so we need your help on it. The previous owner, like I said, my grandmother procured this property, and her husband procured this property in 1941. And after her death in 2003, the property was distributed to her granddaughters. I am one of those granddaughters, and we had unimpeded access to that property from 2003 onward until April 2013. What happened in 2013? The property at 11 Dawson Place that you will see highlighted on your sheets there was deeded to Mr. Joe Anthony Smith, and that property includes a right-of-way that is named Dawson Place. Okay, a number of years ago, we considered trying to purchase easement from Mr. Smith because we were looking at building a house on one of the lots, and it was a requirement of the bank. We were not able to move forward with that because Mr. Smith was involved in some type of bankruptcy action at that time. Now, to the specific issue, anytime a vehicle that has more than 2 axles enter Dawson Place to serve the maintenance and upkeep needs of our property. Mr. Smith challenges the driver's right to be there, and he makes accusations that they're tearing up his road. No evidence have ever been provided to us in terms of photographs that will show that we have damaged the road any more than anybody else who uses the road. And I can assure you that we don't damage the road any more than anybody else. At most, we have maintenance upkeep needs that will require the use of 3-axle trucks, maybe once or twice annually. And I'll give you an example. For example, tree removal. When there's a dead tree or the wind blows down a tree on the property. Bringing dirt to fill in holes because of tree removal or erosion. And most recently was bringing crushed concrete to develop driveways for the lots 26 and 28 Dawson Place. And every time there's a truck that comes to service our property, it ends up with police involvement. As of March 1st, we have leased 26 Dawson Place for the next 3 years. And any time now, a family will be bringing their manufactured home to the lot. And we need to clear the way for them to be able to accomplish this without needing to contact the police or whatever, so that they can have peace at doing that. We've considered potential solutions. A most immediate solution we need for the people who will be moving into 26 Dawson Place. And then there needs to be a longer permanent solution for all of the people who own property and have to access their property through Dawson Place. Well, in order to work out a long-term permanent solution, we think we need clarification of what the status of the road really is. Now, Mr. Smith has a deed entitled to the road, but the signage indicate that it's a county road because the signage for it says Dawson Place is green. Now, as a child, going back and forth on that road, and when we were repairing my grandmother's house in 1994 on that road, there was a blue sign there, which indicated a private road. But at some time after my grandmother's death, and now the sign became green. So what we're saying that if Dawson Place is really intended to be a county road, then by whom and when was the decision made to make it a county road? Because if the land actually belongs to Mr. Smith, then there seems to be a need for the government to actually take over the road.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Newton, I apologize. We try to keep the comments to 3
Okay,
minutes.
I'm sorry,
No,
but-
absolutely. And I don't want to be rude at all. So.
I
So just-
will end that by saying we need your help.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing it to our
Okay.
attention. As far as that road goes, I think you said, you're right, the first question is, who owns the road? What are we talking about? Do we, can we look into that?
Right now, it's deeded to Joe Anthony Smith.
Yes.
And what I think the issue is, and I don't want to put Lawrence on the spot, but we're talking about prescriptive easements and those sorts of things. Particularly if they've accessed that property using that roadway for more than, what, 20
Since
years?
1941.
1941. They clearly have some rights. I don't know that we have the authority to determine that. That's because it's an easement issue, an access easement and prescriptive easement. It may require, I mean, the only way that we could take that road over is if you were to condemn it. And what's the width?
I'm not positive, but it varies because it's It's part of
one
the
tract.
most recently recorded plat. It's part of the Smith property.
But we can look into the history of the parcel and the easement, because obviously it's been delineated. I mean, you can see, it's it's a separate parcel. It's not typically, what you'll see a lot of times is these lines wouldn't exist, and you would see through an aerial some sort of contoured path that people use to access their property, and then eventually it gets decided by the courts that it's prescriptive easement of some sort for access, and that gets delineated. I find it odd that there was a specific parcel that really is the access point for all of the properties here. And when I was here when I got here in 2002, I think one of the first issues I dealt with was in 2003 or 2004, and it had to do with the location of a mobile home owned by, I think it was, I can't remember, it was Carlton Jones at the time, and we had issues back then, and we had to work with them to get the mobile home in here on the property. So this has been an ongoing issue with the use and access of this deeded property, which probably a lawyer or in a court would determine is a prescribed easement. I know I'm probably not describing it accurately legally, but I mean, you cannot bar access.
An easement of necessity. It's like,
I have a meeting set up with TAB on Wednesday next week to discuss this.
Yeah,
to
we
do a
do. We
record
already
search.
have a meeting with our property lawyer next Wednesday to discuss this particular road.
And we certainly wouldn't want to have police action for the new family moving in, trying to.
So this is on the agenda to discuss with our attorneys?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
But the way that he approached people is very dangerous, jumping on the side of trucks.
Oh, okay.
Shaking, and that could escalate.
Yes, sir.
See something, say something, be upset.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Up next, Mrs. Mayor Deckard.
Good evening, Council. If I may pass out something to you before I begin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Council, thank you. My name is Mayor Deckard, and I'm responding tonight to an email that was sent to council by the town manager January 11th, the morning after I spoke to you about difficulty getting FOIA documents about approval of posts and a fence on the corner of Alleyway Road. The town manager claims he had to create a protocol requiring that FOIA requests now be reviewed and vetted by the town's attorney. He used as an example the town's copy cost of the employee manual that I requested, which he calls a significant document. In fact, he said, as an example, the employee manual is a significant document, so copy costs are involved. Taxpayers should not be underwriting other residents' requests. Well, this is the employee manual, more than 27 pages. It costs $2.70 to copy. In my view, if the town manager really wants to save money on FOIA costs, just post the manual on the town's website. He could also save taxpayer money by ditching the unnecessary cost for an attorney and simply abide by state law and fulfill FOIA requests by an appointed town FOIA officer without fear or favor. And I'd like to get to the last paragraph of his email, where the town manager says fire and emergency vehicles can, quote, fight any fire from that area from the fronting street as the front door for these houses front the street, not the alleyway. As you may know, he's referring to 10th and 11th Street. But that's not what the town's code says. It clearly states under Article 2, General to Community Design, interconnected network. An interconnected street network increases the number of routes available for users, resulting in less traffic, greater safety, and increased cost savings. It goes on to say, local drivers can choose from multiple routes, allowing vehicles to disperse throughout the system and keeping traffic light. If there is an accident, one simply chooses a different path. A complete network also ensures greater access and quicker response times for emergency and service vehicles. This results in fewer miles traveled and less consumption of fuel. More importantly, it has the potential to save lives. Article 2 goes on to say rear alleys and lanes. Finally, alleyways provide occupants of accessory dwelling units, and that would be your carriage houses or garages or places that are rented out, with vehicular access to their unit, but more importantly, they afford fire trucks with an alternative path to the main building or buildings on the block. So imagine having to go through the front door of a house that is not on fire on the 11th or 10th Street side, for example, to get to the carriage house in the back that is, or worse, if a garage apartment is connected to the main house. Do you know what can happen when you open the front door of the main house? It's called a backdraft. It's a phenomenon where a fire has consumed all available oxygen, and it suddenly explodes when more oxygen is made available, typically because the door or window has been opened. That's why all town roads have to remain unobstructed. Otherwise, required fire and emergency access is blocked, wasting time, creating unnecessary liability and the potential loss of lives. Every corner should provide an unobstructed, clear visual of both sides of the corner, as well as allow for emergency vehicle access, period. And I'd like to close by saying, so do you think what the town manager says in this email will save lives, or do you think it will cost lives? And why won't he support the town code? Aren't we entitled, like every other resident in town, to have unobstructed access for fire and emergency vehicles? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. We got one more, Mrs. Joy France.
Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate all the paving you guys have approved and gotten done. It's really been nice. I just kind of want to piggyback off of Mayor Deckard's comments. I too live on that alleyway between 10th, or I live on 10th. The alleyway is behind my house. There's been considerable additions approved, which has caused an additional drainage issue onto my property, which I tried to address via email before another construction was done. My emails were gone unanswered. I am very frustrated with the lack of oversight to everyone else's property, rights and access. I too am worried about emergency vehicle access through that alleyway, and also you cannot see around that corner now that there is a fence constructed on the corner of the alleyway. I've almost taken a header with a golf cart twice in my vehicle. And it's not just for me, it's for other people too. It's my property that could get hit, it's people who could get hurt, and I think you all ought to take that into consideration when you go approving these things on corners that are so tight together like this. So a little more communication with the residents here would be nice. The drainage issue is a huge problem on 10th Street. If you ever drive down 10th Street when it rains, you'll see it. And in the backyard, it's even worse now that they've overdeveloped all these new additions to these really tightly placed houses. And now there's concrete on the side of the house too, so there's no grass to absorb anything. And I got absolutely no response to my request for that. So I'd really appreciate it if you maybe responded to your residents. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, that wraps it up for everyone that filled out. We got a hand raised. Yes, I was going to call on Miss Wendy's there anyways, but come on up.
Thank you. Sorry I didn't fill out one of those forms because I wasn't planning on saying anything. But in regards to the tree ordinance, which I have not looked at since it passed, but if my memory serves me, and Noah, you can help me, I think there is a provision in the ordinance for exceptions, and it goes to the DRB. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, that's taken care of, it's in the ordinance. What was the other thing? As far as dangerous trees, there is a provision in the ordinance to have an arborist look at a tree and say it's dangerous and take it out. So those concerns, I believe, are already covered in the ordinance. And I'm trying to figure out, when you talk about a platted lot, when I look at a map of the town, every single lot is platted, right? So that would just negate having the ordinance at all. And lastly, in regard to homeowners association, and of course, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is jurisdictions cannot delegate their ordinances to an HOA. They're your ordinances, and I know sometimes HOAs like to pretend that they can have it the way they want it, even though the ordinance says something different, but you're a lawyer, so you can maybe check on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
And I was going to call you, is there any updates from the Housing Trust?
We are interviewing executive directors.
Okay.
We actually have had some qualified people. Response has been great. And I know that we have a candidate that we favor, that we would like to make the offer to. And I believe that the chair of the search committee and the chairman of the Housing Trust are working to figure out things like benefits and stuff like that. So.
Cool.
And Dana, meanwhile, our interim executive director, has now sent out an RFP for rentals, an RFP for home repair, and an RFP for home ownership. And if you would like to see those, I can send you copies of them. They basically give the criteria for how you would qualify, how much money is available, and all that kind of stuff. So we're getting there.
Cool.
And our $500,000 that we lent on the tax credit deal on Carrington Manor has been funded, so that's our first big investment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Congratulations, thank you.
Yeah,
Nice.
thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Let's do, Greg Shelton, I know we heard from John O'Toole last week, but representative of the Economic Development Corp. Any updates from last week?
Greg Shelton, Madrid Avenue. Still there. As of this week, the letter that's going to the DOD and to the Department of Navy is being reviewed by Carolyn Furman, who is a non-voting member of the task force. There's certain comments that were made about the protocol of the letter going to the DOD and to the one that we had, the letter that we've now been working on for 3 months. Is, you know, they needed some changes, and so the commanding officer of the Marine Air Base was at one of our meetings, I think in February, and we went through a number of iterations of the letter with him, what his comments were, and we finally got to the point where we have the name of the individual at the Department of Defense who represents the Secretary of the Navy, so we can get the letter to them. So we have a meeting next week, the 21st, I believe it is, where we're going through yet another review of the letter, so that we can get it out to the Department of Defense and hopefully get something going. So I think right now the issue is, and I said it this morning in a call, is that I think we got some kind of a paralysis going on in terms of lack of call to action. The letter should have been there. Somebody at the DOD can make a decision. Do we come up to visit them, or do they come down to see us so that we can walk them through the property and start getting some motion? Again, we have no decision from anyone. We're trying to get to that point where a decision is made if and when there is a decision on the hospital itself. What happens if it's no longer being utilized? And as I said last week when we talked about this, Port Royal really is the major benefactor of whatever does come in the future from that property. Whether it remains a government property or whether it converts into some other form of ownership, this community will really stand to benefit from all of that. That's the good side. The other side is to Councilman Ashmore's ever-ending reminder, which is traffic and parking. We're going to have to think about that as well. But that's really the update. Economic development, we have a board meeting next week following the task force meeting, so I'll be back to if there's any updates from there. I think you've got that email?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
All right.
Good update.
Last but not least, County Councilwoman Howard. Back, any updates from the county? It's, oh God, no.
Alice Howard, District 4, not a lot of news, really. We have hired a new county Parks and Recreation.
Saw that.
You saw that? Mhm. He's
Hollywood,
from
Florida, isn't he?
Hollywood,
Yep.
Florida, but his mother's from Charleston. So
Nice.
he's got some local
Good.
roots, and I think everyone thinks
It was a good write-up. Sounded like it got some good energy to it.
got a lot of good energy.
Yeah.
He said to county council, he said, I get paid to play, you know.
Nice.
He's always worked in Parks and Rec, even in high school, I think, so.
Nice.
The library board did not meet today. They didn't have a quorum due to sickness, but they are going to try and meet before as soon as they can, as soon as everyone is well. So further update on that later. Is there any other questions for me? Oh, I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I went by there, but I haven't followed up. Okay.
Thank you.
That was it.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you, Alice.
Right. Down. Public comment. Moving on to council comments. Start to my left. Anything?
I got one item,
Councilman
and I've
Ashton,
spoken with several of y'all about it, but, and I spoke with Van about it earlier today, and then Brooke this evening. We've got a young potential, almost Eagle Scout, Sam Kennerly, who lives in the town of Port Royal, who's got a really good Eagle Scout project, where he has created a disposal of U.S. flags, and he's got it up at the police department. And what I'd like to do on the April 3rd meeting is us meet up there at 5:30 prior to our meeting and celebrate that with the young Boy Scout and his troop. And then come on down to our council meeting, workshop at 6:30, and just kind of bring him in front of everybody and let him talk about it a little bit.
Great.
If that's something we can get on the agenda, and if we can all just remember to do that for the April 3rd meeting. And I'll coordinate things on the scout side, and I'll let you know the information that you requested. Thank you all for accommodating that.
Councilman Ashmore's our scout go-to. He's an Eagle Scout, right?
That's right.
Eagle Scout. That's a big deal.
That's right.
It's very big.
All right. Councilman Owens?
I am excited about the new park that's at Bruce Edgerly Field. And I walk by there daily and go by there, and there's a large number of people that's out there. So they are really enjoying it. And I'm happy to hear that the county has hired a new director of Parks and Recreation. And to my understanding, I heard that there may be some potential funding available and make a recommendation for us to petition the county to add a splash pad at that park. So that's
I'll make it.
Okay.
We
So
talked about
we need
that
to
at
petition the
Port Royal,
county.
remember?
Yes,
That
yes.
was I mean, it does.
I heard someone say a great idea back there.
Okay.
Can we spray it for the gnats?
Well, if you look at that park, there's a little sliver. There's that part that's unfinished over there. And, I think it
And that would be a good
effective.
place for a splash pad.
Perfect. I
All right.
agree.
Parking.
No, that's you're talking about inside.
I'm saying we gotta think about parking.
I saw that also.
Gonna
People are
attract
parking,
good-
they're parking
yeah.
their Kappa's on, and the Kappa
Yeah.
has signs that says Kappa parking only, and they totally ignore that, so they're all over.
So-
That's the response that park is getting, but
Yeah,
there's
it's
also
great.
a sign that says there's additional parking up on the other side, which people are not complying with. So anyway, as I said, from us, I think we should petition the county about adding a splash pad. to that
Talk
park.
about it. Just,
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, if you talk to any people with young kids, they love it. And they ask about having one in the county all the time. So, anything, Councilman Guerrero?
Now, yes, I do want to, again, further commend our police department and our fire department. Being a combat veteran, the words and the description that Doc was given and what the actions that those men and women took with it does. It makes you really consider where you live and, good people surround each other with good people. That's what it is. And, Chief and everyone in the departments, their willingness to continue to develop their trade and their craft is so important, and it can never be just undermined. I mean, we got to give it the credit that it deserves. When they're there after hours doing just and getting another certification or coming in early or doing things, I mean, that's something that we as a town, I think, have to be extremely proud of. You know, and seeing them and appreciating what they're doing every single day is just something else, because you never know that you're going to do that until it's happening, you know, and life gets really slow and fast at the same time. And, you know, it's really fast for the victim or for the responder, and really slow for the victim. It's really weird how that kind of happens. And the fact that those men and women were able to go into that with that level of demeanor and communicate all that stuff still to another entity who's going to receive them. Man, I mean, we train a lifetime in the military as combat arms Marines. I'm an infantry guy by trade. We train a lifetime to be able to communicate as clearly as Doc, as Ross and Chief said that they did, and they do it. They practice it on their spare time. You know, they just, the way they communicate every single day. And, you know, I'm just extremely proud of that. I'm really extremely proud of that. And the fact that the community came together for that, and the base came out here to support that endeavor, just, it says a lot about who we are as a town, I think. And, you know, it just, that sometimes I think I'm up here looking disgruntled, but it's going in my, you know, it's running through my head, all the things that they're saying and the steps that they're taking and how they're handing that off is just, we have to be proud of that, how those young men and women responded to that, and how they gave a mom and a wife and a daughter, a dad, a son, and a father back. I mean, that's awesome. We can't. It's a great night tonight. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
It's
And to
so
see the
awesome.
response from the colleagues also
My
that came
God.
to support.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, it was a pretty neat experience. I'm glad.
Man.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
And thank you, chiefs, for everything that you do.
For your leadership.
To lead your troops to do that. And I know
Amazing.
back in the day, they didn't have paramedics on the fire engines. And now, we're getting more and more. And Port Royal is number one in my book with our police department, our fire department, our county EMS. They are number one. And they have always done that for this town and made us proud. And it happens to be from the leadership, from the town manager, on down to the chiefs. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because we all have family out there.
Keep
And
training.
the splash pad is an awesome idea. We talked about it at the Naval Heritage Park. Before, we looked at it, and we didn't get it, but hopefully maybe we can look at it again through the county. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you. And I'll just close with, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, but just thank you all for being here. Another great meeting. Ready to get into, we've got, like I said, Easter's coming up. We got a lot of great events. Street Music on Paris starts soon. Show Craft Festival. And kind of just, I'll say, in you know, in the vein of what happened earlier, you know, just get out, and I'd encourage you to know your neighbors, take care of them, check in on people, look after each other. It only helps us out, all of us. So thank you all again for being here. We actually have an executive session coming up. You can see our amazing legal counsel is here, so we can discuss Safe Harbor again. As you heard, we've not received a response from them, so we wanted to discuss that. So at this time, I will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session, to discuss receipt of legal advice related to the Port Royal development.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Good night.
Okay, and we are back from executive session. At this time, no action was taken. When we were in receipt of legal advice related to the Port of Fort Royal development, at this moment, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, I